Welcome to Trucks. I've got a great show planned for you today because I am going to lift a truck. No, not this little Subaru. I'm going to deal with this later on. I'm talking big lifts on big trucks. Now, if you've picked up any kind of a truck-oriented magazine lately, you know that big lifts are really popular. I'm talking 10, 15, 20 inches of lift. Now, although that's cool, it doesn't necessarily make a good off-road vehicle or a street-legal vehicle, since most states have laws on how high you can lift a rig. So the question is, how high can you lift your truck to give yourself a better off-road rig and not get the truck impounded at the same time? Well, those are the things we're going to deal with today as we take this 2002 Super Duty and jack it up in the air. Now the first question, how high should you go? Well, a good rule of thumb is about 8 inches because that'll allow you to fit a really nice sized tire in here, still keep your center of gravity fairly low, and should still keep you legal as far as headlight and bumper height's concerned. If you go any higher, you start to get into custom components like special drive shafts, steering linkage, forelinks, drop brackets, etc., which are not only expensive, but can also compromise the safety of your rig on the road. For our truck, we went to Superlift and got their 8-inch lift kit for the Ford Super Duty. Now this kit includes huge rear and front springs. We'll talk more about those when we put them in. All the hardware, shocks, drop brackets, everything that you're going to need to put this in. Now we wanted a few more options to go with this kit, so we also got from Superlift their dual steering stabilizer, dual front shock option, these special stainless steel and Kevlar brake lines, and of course their True Speed. Now this thing allows you to recalibrate your speedometer for bigger tires. You've got to have this. Now I know this looks like a lot of stuff, but believe it or not, you can install this in your garage over the weekend, and I'm going to show you how. First thing you'll need to do is get the tires off. You'll also want to pull off the front bumper because it gives you more room to work. Next, unbolt the track bar from the bracket. You're going to need a long-handled breaker bar for this because they're on tight. And then unbolt this bracket from the frame. Then unbolt the sway bar end link from the frame. Remove the shock bracket, and the stock bump stop. Finally, disconnect the drag link from the pitman arm. Now we are ready to get these stock leaf springs out of here. Now the first thing we're going to do is put a jack under the axle to support it because it is heavy, and it's also going to be awkward because all your weight is off to one side because the pumpkin's offset. Now if you don't have a jack like this that will support the whole thing properly, you're going to have to drop it one side at a time. Remove the U-bolts that hold the axle to the spring. Then unbolt the springs and get them out of there. The new Superlift springs are these huge monsters that have the full 8 inches of lift built right into them. Now they come with new bushings all installed, and here in front you have a military-style double wrap for strength and safety. Now, I know you're looking at these going, man, they're huge, they've got to be stiff as heck. No, because they use 10 smaller leaves as opposed to just a couple big thick ones, this gives you a much smoother spring rate curve, which gives you a smoother ride, less bouncing and jarring like you would expect from a big spring. They are heavy though, about 95 pounds worth of heavy. So you are going to need an extra set of hands to help you put these on. With the new springs in place and the axle jacked up firmly against it, it is time to start bolting things together. Now some of the new parts we're using is this top bracket. It's for the dual shocks. Then we've got this bracket down here for the dual steering stabilizer, and it's all held together with new U-bolts like a big sandwich. Now these are just snugged down for now. I'm going to wait till I get the truck down on the ground, get the weight on the springs, then I'm going to crank those down where they need to be. Moving on, we are ready to modify our steering linkage. Now the kit comes with this new adjuster sleeve, goes right in place of the original, and it's about 1 inch longer to make up for the lift. Now before you take the original piece off though, come in here with the tape measure Measure how much thread you've got on either side. Then, when you put the new one on, match the thread count up. And then, when you bolt it all together and the truck's sitting down on the ground, your steering wheel should be pretty much centered up where it needs to be. Finally, we'll pull the stock pitman arm and bolt on the new dropped arm that comes with the kit. While we're in here, we're going to put on this new track bar drop bracket, and it goes right where the original one was, and it uses the original hardware. Now notice how it drops the location of the track bar down to where nothing's in a bind. Then bolt the drag link to the pitman arm, and that takes care of your linkage. Now make sure that you're using a new cotter pin up here. Don't reuse those old cotter pins. Now notice that I don't have the track bar hooked up yet. Unless you're a glutton for punishment, it is better to have the truck down on the ground with the weight on it before you try to hook that track bar up. Okay, like I said before, we are using Superlift's optional dual shock kit on the front, and since those dual shocks really need something to bolt to, this bracket is what you get. Now it goes here on the frame, the brake lines and stuff run around behind it, and it bolts right to existing holes. All you have to do is come in with a drill and open those up a little bit. With the bracket bolted on, it is time for the shocks. And they just slide into place and they're bolted on with the supplied hardware. Now, as you can see, this is starting to look like something now, especially since half of my body now fits into the wheel well. Now, after the break, I'm going to finish up the front and then jump on the rear. And if you want to see what a difference 8 inches of lift can make, you're going to have to come back. We are taking a 2002 Super Duty and we are lifting it right to the ragged edge of what you can legally drive on the highway. And we're doing that with a Superlift 8-inch lift kit. Now, I've already almost finished the front. Everything went on pretty easy, no real surprises. So let's finish it up before we run out of time. Now, one of the last things to hook up are these sway bar end links, and just like the track bar and the pitman arm, they need to be dropped down. So, take this bracket that comes with the kit, it bolts right to the frame in the stock location using the stock hardware. Then, just hook up the link. It's that easy. Now we are ready to talk brakes, or more specifically, brake lines. Now this is not an area you can afford to overlook if you're doing a lift, especially something this big. Now it is possible to come in here, modify your hard lines to where you can reuse the stock hoses. And this is why most lift companies don't include new hoses in their kits. But you need new hoses. Why? Well, first of all, the stock hose is too weak to do any kind of serious off-roading with. Second of all, it's going to be too short. So, for our new hoses, we went to Superlift and check this out. This hose starts with a Teflon inner core, then that is wrapped with braided Kevlar, then over the top of that goes your braided stainless steel outer shell. Over that is a final coating of vinyl. These are insanely strong, they won't expand, and they are DOT approved. But the best part is they are direct replacement for your old factory rubber hoses, which you might as well throw away because you're not going to need those anymore. With the new brake lines in place, we're going to move right on to this dual steering stabilizer kit. Now obviously, the original stabilizer bars got to come out, so we'll unbolt it at either end. Then we need to come in and cut off a piece of this bracket. So we'll get out the cutoff tool and we'll take care of that. Then bolt on the bracket, followed by the stabilizers. And that takes care of the front end. Well, what do you think? 8 inches of lift. Well, yeah, it's awesome, especially when you compare it to the rear end, which is still at stock height. Now take a really good look at it because this is the next thing we're going to change after the break. Welcome back to Trucks, where we are wrestling an 8-inch suspension lift onto our Super Duty here. Now, we've already got the front taken care of. All we have left to do is the rear, and it's pretty simple. Pretty much replacing springs and shocks and a few other things. So hold on, here we go. With a jack under the rear axle for support, remove the U-bolts, unbolt the shocks, then unbolt the springs and take them out. We're getting our lift on the rear with these big old Super Lift springs that, just like what we put on the front, completely dwarf what originally came on the truck. Now, these are set up for a full 8 inches of lift, and they've got this overload spring so you can still carry heavy loads in the rear. You're just going to have to lift those loads a little higher to get them into the bed. Now, installing these is very simple. Just slide them into place, put them on with factory hardware. With the springs on and the axle bolted back up, all you have to do is bolt on your new shocks and your bump stop extensions, and you are almost finished. You want to make sure, though, you've got plenty of slack in your brake cables and your hoses, because you don't want those binding up on you. The last thing we're going to do is drop this carrier bearing on the 2-piece drive shaft, because on an 8-inch lift, this rear drive shaft angle is going to be too steep and you're going to get some vibration. Dropping that bearing down will take care of that. Now all you have to do is take this bracket, bolt it on, and then bolt the bearing to that. That takes care of the lift. Now we need to put on some wheels and tires that will do that lift some justice. For wheels, we went to Weld Racing and got what they call the Mountain Crusher. Now these are a polished, forged aluminum wheel, so they're very strong. Then to give them a rugged outdoor look, they've got this beadlock looking outer rim, and the size, 16 by 10. Now for tires, we got these huge 38-inch tall, 15.5-inch wide monsters from Interco, and they are called the Truxes. Now these have a very unique tread design, kind of look like big teeth, that run all the way down into the sidewall. Now, I know these look like a really radical off-road tire, and they do really well, but this is Interco's all-terrain tire, so they should be good on the highway too. But either way, they look like they're going to just jump out and grab you. One last thing. A big tire like this means a lot of rolling mass. That means your stock brakes aren't going to cut it. Fortunately, Off-Road Unlimited has an easy solution in this disc brake upgrade kit for the Super Duty. Now these feature special pads that have a much more aggressive compound that bite quicker, and of course that stops the truck better. Now they use that in conjunction with a cold hardened rotor so they won't overheat and warp like a normal rotor will. The best part is these are a direct replacement for what's on the truck. This will take you just a few minutes to throw these on. And if you're going to run some big tires, you really need to look into this. That finishes up the lift. Wow, 8 inches of suspension lift and a 38-inch tall tire equals right around 12 inches of total lift. Now, if you're thinking of duplicating this project, you need to check your state laws first because it may be too high for some states. Now, once you have the truck back on the ground, crawl underneath it, check all your nuts and bolts, make sure they're tight, and make sure you check them again after about 500 miles of driving. Now, speaking of driving, what do you say we fire this thing up and take it out? Yeah, good idea. To say this truck has a commanding presence on the road is an understatement, but it's not just looks. It's also very solid at freeway speeds, and surprisingly, the tires are fairly quiet considering the massive size and tread design. But this truck really comes alive when you get off-road because the suspension really works and you don't have to baby it. The new springs are stiff, but they still give you good flex, and the extra tire and ground clearance lets you go up and over, or through places you wouldn't dream of taking a stock truck. So, if you want a big truck that you can wheel hard, this is how to build it.
Just can't get enough of trucks? Check us out online at truckstv.com.
Welcome back. In the automotive world, the line between cars and trucks has gotten fuzzier with each passing year. Now, like we showed you before the break, this is a truck. And of course, this is a car. And somewhere in between, you have things like the Chevy Avalanche, the PT Cruiser, and new for 2003, the Subaru Baja. The first thing you notice about the Baja is the body and the styling, with plastic panels covering the lower half of the body, giving a more aggressive flared look, very similar to the Avalanche. The Baja also follows the current trend of more doors and more usable room, with 4 full doors and enough space to carry 4 adults. And inside those doors, the Baja is very sporty, with leather bucket seats, console, and round-faced gauges. The bed is tiny at first glance, but if you fold down the rear seat and open the rear panel, all of a sudden you have room to carry things like skis and kayaks, heck, even bikes. Still need more room? The Baja also comes with roof rails and crossbars to carry more stuff up on top, and a bed extender to lengthen the cargo space in the bed. Under the hood, you have a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder that kicks out 165 horsepower. Now, while this isn't going to throw you back in the seat, it does make the Baja surprisingly quick and nimble. Now, Subaru is legendary for its all-wheel drive vehicles, and the Baja is no exception. Features full-time all-wheel drive and a limited slip differential in the rear, which makes this a good outdoors or recreational rig. However, don't waste your time looking for a low range or any other serious off-road features, because the Baja doesn't have them. That's not what it was designed for. But you might be surprised what you can do with one of these things with a little persuasion. So, is it a truck? No, not really. Is it a car? No, not really. So what is it? Well, it's the Subaru Baja, and it just might be what you're looking for. One of the most popular modifications that people like to do to early trucks is convert the door glass to one piece. Get rid of this vent wing. Unfortunately, that takes a lot of fabrication, some time, cutting of glass, a lot of time to make it look right. Well, for those of you with a 67 through 72 Chevy truck, you've got a shortcut with this kit from Early Classic Enterprises. Now, it's a one-piece door glass kit, no vent wings anymore, and of course you get door glass, bracketry, and all the weather stripping and seals to have this thing seal up, look right, and not leak on you. If you like the one-piece look, Early Classic can help you out. As more people are getting into off-roading and lifting trucks, the demand for an affordable long travel shock keeps getting greater and greater. Well, it was no surprise when Edelbrock came out with these extreme travel remote reservoir shocks. Now, this takes Edelbrock's patented IAS technology, sticks it into a long travel body with a remote reservoir. Now, this not only gives you more oil capacity for cooler running, it gives you a shock that's going to handle it when you want to get rough with things. Now, it doesn't matter if you're lifting a truck or building a custom chassis, Edelbrock's probably got a set of these for your application. Okay, we've all heard the urban legend about the 65 Corvette in the barn for $100 and paint that you can paint right over rust and it'll stop it. Well, I can't help you on the Corvette, but the paint does exist, and it's made by Magnet Paints, and it's called Chassis Saver paint. Now, this stuff you can literally paint right over a rusty surface. It chemically bonds, sealing out any kind of moisture or oxygen, and without those, you don't have rust. Now it dries extremely hard, but remains flexible, so it's not going to crack and chip and peel off on you. And it's also impervious to any kind of gas or fuels or salt water or acid, heck, you name it. So if you want to protect the bottom of your rig, keep it from rusting, or keep it from ever starting, give Magnet Paints a call. And that's going to do it for today. We will see you next week.